and the swings go up and down, and that's how we ended up selling to Staples. So today's Staples operation in Latin America is our original OfficeNet business. Funny enough, they acquired us and they started opening stores, which to me doesn't make any sense. In fact, Staples announced 3 days ago they're shutting down 225 stores in the U.S. Stock price went down 15%, but the company's theirs. If they want to open 1,000 stores in Argentina or Brazil, that's what they should do. But so our experience of entrepreneurship was one of major ups and downs, at least in our first project, because what we experienced was that it's like suddenly we were going public at $1 billion in the internet crazy days. Suddenly, oh no, we're gonna die. We don't have any more money. Suddenly it was like, oh, Staples is gonna buy and come and buy us. Suddenly it was like, oh my God, I mean, they're never gonna come to the region. What do we do? And my experience is that that's what tends to happen, and you need to get used to it if you want to play in Latin America. That is part of the game. Now, one of the things we learned after Staples acquired OfficeNet is that there's a certain way to build a company, especially in the technology sector, which is the one at least I am more familiar with. There's a certain way to build a company over time. And that is something I'd like to talk about, and that is something that has to do with my latest venture, which is Quasar Ventures. Basically, the metaphor I like to use is the metaphor of climbing the Everest. So, I don't know, who's a climber? Raise your hand if you're, okay. Good. Okay, some of you are climbers. For those of you that are not climbers, you will probably know by common sense that when you look at a mountain, I mean, one thing is looking at a straight line and saying, I'll just get to the top and walk. And probably if you do that with the Everest, you'll die. There is a high chance you'll die. I mean, there is a certain way to climb the Everest. There's a certain methodology. In fact, when you look at it, they basically say you need to go to a certain place, stay there, acculturate, get connected with the climate, then maybe go down, then adapt your lungs, and there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to get to the top and become successful. And if you look at the death rates, I mean, there's a certain way, I mean, in which you go up and down, and there's a certain death rate if you're a climber, but there's also a certain death rate if you're a Sherpa. The Sherpas are the ones that carry your backpack while you're going up. And that is something that both Santiago and I came up with as a result of our experience with Staples, which was, we were very lucky because things go up and down and we ended up having Staples acquire OfficeNet, but the reality is there is a certain way to build a business. And most of the entrepreneurs, we believe, don't really know how to go step by step and how to choose each one of the different milestones along the way. So as a result of that, we created a concept which we call parallel entrepreneurship or company building. Or co-founders with expiration date, or many other terms that we will invent in the coming years, which is basically saying the VCs invest in companies that are there, that currently operate, and they are successful, otherwise they wouldn't invest in them. Incubators normally say, let's come up with startups. Let's come up and do many startups and hope that by investing in many startups, some of them will become successful. And then what we decided to do was something which we call company building, which is building companies from scratch with teams, from zero, even before they decide to become entrepreneurs. So working with people, we believe that most of the best talent in Latin America is outside of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Many of them are in corporations. So one of the things we do is we look for them in corporations and we say, why aren't you an entrepreneur? I mean, you have all the talent and you have all the skills. And we have developed a model to determine what are the skills that are attributable to a successful entrepreneur. And we say, why are you there? Why don't you just quit your job and come and become an entrepreneur? This is the upside potential you have ahead of you. And let's build a company together. You'll be the controlling stakeholder, we'll be minority stakeholders, but have a sizable portion, and we're going to be building the company with you. And we're the Sherpas. We're going to be going with you and walking with you along the way. Quasar was defined that way. Basically, it was built with the intention of building 10 disruptive companies over a period of 4 years. And we've already built 3 companies. I'll tell you a little bit about one of them just as an illustration. And we have several other projects in the pipeline. But again, the intention is we believe that Latin America has the best talent in the world. Global companies can be built from Latin America. There's many projects, that are in fact bigger in Latin America as an opportunity than in the US. For example, financial services. There's one project we're working on which has to do with arbitraging the spreads between the rate at which SMEs get funded and the rates at which large corporations get funded, which in Brazil, for example, SMEs get funded at 40% per annum, and large companies get funded at 8% per annum. If you go to the US, the spread is only 3–4%. So those markets are bigger in Latin America than in the US. There's more dentists in Brazil than in the US, for example. And like that, there's many, many industries that if you dive into, you say, oh my God, this could be a larger business than one in the US. So what we said was to focus on companies that will be worth more than $100 million, probably between 100 and a billion, that's the target valuation, and dive into that with the best talent possible. Let me share with you a story of Restaurando, very briefly. Who knows Restaurando.com? Raise your hand. Okay, very few of you, which is great, because then that means that